In August 2010, a 63-year-old man named David Rant set out on a solo hike into the backcountry of Olympic National Park. He was experienced, he had gear, he had a plan. He was reported overdue on August 14th. Search and rescue teams deployed across some of the most difficult terrain in the western United States. They searched for days. David Rant was never found. Not his pack, not his tent, not a single piece of equipment. In a park with over 600 miles of maintained trails, threading through rainforest, glacier, alpine meadow, and coastline, a prepared and experienced hiker simply ceased to exist. His case remains open. This national park is loved by millions of visitors every year, but what most people don't know is the dark truth hidden beneath its beauty. Stay until the end to discover the shocking reality. There is a place in the continental United States where you can walk from a temperate rainforest, receiving 140 inches of rain per year, climb through old-growth forest to a glacier, descend to an alpine meadow, and arrive at a wild Pacific coastline, all within the boundaries of a single park. Olympic National Park covers 922,651 acres on the Olympic Peninsula in northwestern Washington state. It is larger than the entire state of Rhode Island. It contains 3 distinct ecosystems that exist nowhere else on Earth in this combination: temperate rainforest, subalpine wilderness, and 73 miles of wild Pacific coastline. The Olympic Peninsula has been called a biological island, surrounded on 3 sides by water and on the 4th by the Hood Canal, creating conditions where species evolved in complete separation from the rest of the continent. The Olympic Mountains rise to 7,980 feet at the summit of Mount Olympus. That peak receives an average of 220 inches of snowfall per year, more than 18 feet. The Hoh rainforest on the park's western slope receives between 140 and 170 inches of precipitation annually, making it one of the wettest places in the contiguous United States. The northeastern corner of the park, sheltered by the mountains, receives less than 17 inches per year, 2 completely different climates existing within the same park boundary, separated by a single ridgeline. The park was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1981. It contains the largest intact temperate rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. In 2023, it received approximately 2.7 million visitors. Most of them had no idea what they were actually walking into. The park has no road that crosses it. There is no highway connecting the eastern side to the western side through the interior. US Route 101 circumnavigates the peninsula, and from that highway, spur roads reach into the park's edges. But the interior, the vast central wilderness of glaciated peaks and river valleys and old-growth forest, is accessible only on foot. The moment you leave a trailhead parking lot and walk into the Olympic backcountry, you are entering terrain where the nearest road may be 20 or 30 miles away in any direction. There are no shortcuts. There are no fire roads. There is no infrastructure waiting for you if something goes wrong. The park contains 13 active glaciers. The glacial melt feeds rivers that are cold enough to induce hypothermia in minutes and powerful enough to move boulders during spring runoff. The Hoh River, the Canal, the Elwha, the Queets. These are glacially fed, rain-swollen, and capable of rising several feet in a matter of hours. The forest itself creates a specific kind of disorientation that experienced hikers describe and novice hikers almost never anticipate. In the Hoh rainforest, the canopy is so dense that on an overcast day, which is most days, the light is uniform in every direction. There are no shadows to read. The moss grows on every surface, not just the north side of trees, because moisture comes from every direction. The landmarks that humans instinctively use to navigate, light, shadow, slope, the sound of water, all behave differently here than they do anywhere else. On January 28, 2018, a 34-year-old man named Jeffrey Sherrill went hiking near the Elwha River area. He was reported missing when he did not return as expected. Search and rescue teams from Clallam County and the National Park Service deployed in winter conditions. His body was recovered on February 4, 2018 in the Elwha River. The Elwha is a river that most visitors see from a bridge and assess as beautiful. What the viewpoint does not communicate is the temperature of that water, fed by snowmelt and rain in a climate that rarely gets warm, or the speed of the current in winter, or the way the riverbanks in the Elwha Valley can become indistinguishable from the river itself after heavy rain. when water spreads across the floodplain and the boundary between trail and river simply disappears. The Elwha had been the site of one of the largest dam removal projects in American history. The Elwha Dam and Glines Canyon Dam, both removed between 2011 and 2014, restoring 70 miles of river to its natural state. The restoration was celebrated as an ecological triumph. What it also restored was the river's full, unimpeded power, the same power that the Elwha Saklallam tribe had lived alongside for thousands of years, and that modern visitors, arriving after decades of a dammed and controlled river, had no reference point for. Jeffrey Sherrill's case reveals something specific. The park is actively changing. The landscape that existed 5 years ago is not the landscape that exists today. Restoration, erosion, glacial retreat, and storm damage continuously alter the terrain in ways that maps, even recently updated ones, cannot capture. The coastal strip of Olympic National Park is one of the most remote stretches of coastline in the lower 48 states. There are no roads running along it. Access points are separated by miles of beach hiking, headland scrambling, and tidal crossings that are only passable at low tide. This is where the park's geography creates a danger that has no equivalent in any other national park in the country: tidal entrapment. The coastal trail passes through sections where the only route around a headland is a narrow passage at the base of a sea cliff, a passage that is completely submerged at high tide. Miss the tide window, and there is no way forward and no way back. The cliff above is unclimbable. The ocean is in front of you, and the Pacific swells can arrive without warning and sweep a person off a rock shelf in seconds. In October 2016, a hiker was stranded at a coastal headland and required rescue by the United States Coast Guard. The rescue required a helicopter and coordination between multiple agencies. The hiker was uninjured. That case was not unusual. It was representative. The coastal strip also presents a danger that is entirely invisible until it arrives: sneaker waves. The Pacific coast of Washington is one of the most active sneaker wave environments in North America. These are waves generated by distant storms thousands of miles away, traveling as long-period swells that are nearly invisible on the surface until they reach shallow water and suddenly surge far beyond the normal waveline. The National Park Service has documented multiple incidents of visitors being swept from coastal rocks and beaches by sneaker waves in Olympic. In some cases, the victims were not near the water's edge. They were standing on rocks they believed were safely above the waveline when a wave arrived that exceeded every wave that had come before it that day. The ocean does not establish a pattern and then maintain it. That is not how the Pacific works. At Hurricane Ridge, the park's most accessible high-elevation area, reachable by a paved road from Port Angeles, the weather station has recorded winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. The ridge sits at 5,242 feet, and on a clear summer day, it draws thousands of visitors who drive up in shorts and sandals to look at the view. The drive takes approximately 45 minutes from Port Angeles. The weather at the top can be 30 degrees colder than the weather at the bottom. Fog can move in and reduce visibility to near zero in under 20 minutes. Snow has fallen at Hurricane Ridge in every month of the year. In the rainforest, the danger operates differently. The Hoh maintains temperatures between 33 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. What this means in practice is that a hiker who gets wet, which is nearly inevitable on any extended trip, is in an environment where wet clothing loses 90% of its insulating value, where the temperature is rarely warm enough to dry out naturally, and where the combination of moisture, wind, and moderate cold creates ideal conditions for hypothermia at temperatures that most people do not associate with life-threatening cold. Hypothermia does not require freezing temperatures. It requires a body losing heat faster than it can generate it. In the Hoh, that threshold can be crossed at 50 degrees Fahrenheit by a hiker in wet cotton clothing who stops moving. This is the mechanism behind multiple deaths and rescues in Olympic's backcountry, in conditions that survivors described afterward as not that bad. On February 19, 2004, a group of experienced mountaineers set out to climb Mount Olympus via the Blue Glacier route, the standard route to the summit, requiring glacier travel, crevasse navigation, and technical climbing skills. The party encountered deteriorating weather conditions on the upper mountain. The details of what happened next are not fully established in the public record. What is documented is that a rescue operation was launched, and that conditions on the mountain during the rescue were described by park rangers as among the most difficult they had encountered. Mount Olympus is not a famous mountain. Its summit elevation of 7,980 feet is modest by the standards of the Cascades or the Rockies, but its position, sitting directly in the path of Pacific storms, with no other significant peaks to its west, means it receives weather of an intensity that its elevation does not suggest. Storms that have traveled thousands of miles across the open Pacific arrive at Mount Olympus with their full energy intact. The Blue Glacier itself has become more hazardous as it has retreated. Crevasses that were once covered by stable snow bridges are now exposed or covered by thinner, less reliable snow. The route documented in guidebooks written 20 years ago is not the route that exists today. Climbers who rely on older information are navigating a glacier that has fundamentally changed beneath their feet. Olympic's search and rescue operations are conducted by a small team of rangers covering 922,651 acres. The Clallam County Sheriff's Office, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, and Grays Harbor County Sheriff's Office all have jurisdiction over portions of the surrounding area and frequently assist. The United States Coast Guard handles coastal rescues. In major incidents, Washington State's search and rescue volunteers are activated. When someone goes missing in the Hoh rainforest, searchers work in terrain where visibility is measured in feet, where the sound of rain on the canopy masks the sound of a person calling for help, and where the ground is so saturated that tracking is nearly impossible. When someone goes missing on the coast, evidence washes away with the tide. When someone goes missing on the high peaks, weather windows for aerial search can be measured in hours over the course of days. The glaciers do not give up what falls into them easily or quickly or sometimes at all. On December 26, 2011, a 24-year-old man named Andrew Tweed went hiking in the park. He was reported overdue. Search and rescue teams deployed in winter conditions. His body was recovered on January 5, 2012, in the Sal Duke River drainage. The Sal Duke runs through old-growth forest in the park's northwestern interior. In winter, it runs high and cold, fed by rain and snowmelt from the surrounding peaks. In winter, that valley is a place where temperatures drop below freezing at night, where the trail can be covered in ice or snow, and where the combination of isolation, cold, and wet creates conditions that can kill a healthy young person in hours. Andrew Tweed was 24 years old. He went hiking the day after Christmas. His body was found 10 days later. What his case reveals is something that Olympic's visitation statistics obscure. The park does not close in winter. There are no gates across the trailheads. The Hoh Rainforest Road stays open. The coastal access points stay open. And in winter, the park is nearly empty of other visitors, which means that if something goes wrong, there is no one nearby to help, and no one to report an overdue hiker until days have passed. Cell coverage in the park's interior is effectively non-existent. This is not a carrier-specific issue. It is a geography issue. The Olympic Mountains block signal from towers on the peninsula's edges. The river valleys run deep between ridgelines that further block transmission. In the backcountry of Olympic, a cell phone is a camera and a flashlight. It is not a communication device. The transition from connected to completely isolated happens at a specific moment that most visitors do not consciously register. You park the car, you put on your pack, you walk past the trailhead sign, and you are, from that moment, entirely on your own. Satellite communicators can send emergency signals from anywhere with a view of the sky. The National Park Service recommends them for backcountry travel in Olympic, but recommendation is not requirement, and the majority of day hikers enter the park without them. People wait to call for help because they believe they will get cell service around the next bend. They walk further in the wrong direction, trying to find a signal. They lose time that, in hypothermia or injury cases, is the only resource that matters. On May 31st, 2010, a ranger named Margaret Anderson was shot and killed at a checkpoint on the road to Hurricane Ridge. The shooter was Benjamin Colton Barnes, a 24-year-old man who had earlier that day shot 4 people at a New Year's party in Seattle, killing 1. Barnes fled into the park. Anderson, who was attempting to stop his vehicle, was shot and killed. She was 34 years old, a mother of 2 young children, and had been a park ranger for 6 years. A massive manhunt was launched involving park rangers, the FBI, and multiple law enforcement agencies. Barnes's body was found the following day in the Sal Duke River. The cause of death was determined to be drowning and hypothermia. Margaret Anderson was the first National Park Service ranger killed in the line of duty in Washington state. Her death revealed something about Olympic that no trail safety briefing addresses. The park's isolation and its lack of cell service make it a destination not only for people seeking wilderness, but occasionally for people seeking to disappear. The same features that make Olympic a sanctuary for hikers make it, in rare and terrible circumstances, a place where the consequences of human violence are amplified by geography. In the Hoh rainforest, the maintained trails are clear and well marked. The danger is not on the trail. The danger is what happens when you leave it. The vegetation in the Hoh grows at a rate and density that has no equivalent in the lower 48 outside of this ecosystem. Fallen trees, nurse logs, are covered in ferns, moss, and seedling trees, creating structures that look like solid ground but are hollow underneath, capable of dropping a person several feet without warning. The root systems of old-growth trees create above-ground networks of ridges and gaps that are invisible under the moss cover. A hiker who steps off the trail to investigate something and walks 200 feet into the Hoh rainforest can find themselves in a position where the trail is invisible, inaudible, and in a direction they can no longer reliably determine. The forest looks the same in every direction. The light is the same in every direction. 200 feet, that is the distance between the trail and lost. Search and rescue teams in Olympic have documented cases where a lost person was located less than a mile from a trail, but had been unable to reach it because the vegetation between them and the trail was physically impassable without tools. Devil's club, vine maple, salmonberry, stinging nettle, growing in walls. The forest does not let you through. It holds you where you are. Olympic's 13 glaciers have all retreated significantly since systematic measurement began. The retreat has exposed new terrain, rock that was under ice for thousands of years, now bare and unstable. This newly exposed rock has not had time to consolidate. It is prone to rockfall in ways that the surrounding older terrain is not. Climbers on Mount Olympus and the other glaciated peaks are now moving through a landscape that is actively destabilizing. Routes considered standard a decade ago now pass beneath rockfall zones that did not exist when the guidebooks describing those routes were written. The hazard is not theoretical. Rockfall events on Olympic's glaciated peaks have been documented by climbers and rangers in recent years, though the full incident record is not comprehensively published. The mountain you are climbing is not the mountain that was climbed before you. The glacier is smaller, the rock above it is less stable, and the information you use to plan your route may describe conditions that no longer exist. The driftwood on Olympic's beaches is not the driftwood of a calm lakeshore. These are logs, full-sized old-growth logs, some of them 6 to 8 feet in diameter and 40 to 60 feet long, deposited by winter storms and arranged in massive piles above the high tide line. They are a defining visual feature of the coast. They are also a documented source of fatalities. In 1987, a child was killed at Kalaloch Beach when a log rolled. The logs on Olympic's beaches are not stable. They are rounded, often waterlogged, and positioned on sand that shifts with every tide. A log that appears firmly grounded can move when weight is applied, when a wave reaches it, or when the sand beneath it shifts. The water temperature off Olympic's coast ranges from approximately 46 to 57 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. At those temperatures, cold shock, the involuntary gasp reflex triggered by sudden immersion, can cause immediate inhalation of water. Swimming capacity is severely impaired within minutes. Loss of consciousness can follow within 30 minutes of immersion, even in a healthy adult. The Pacific off Olympic's coast is not a swimming beach, it is an ocean. The beauty of the setting makes it easy to forget that distinction. The ocean does not. In the summer of 2015, a hiker on the Elwha River Trail encountered a section of trail that had been washed out by winter flooding. The washout was not marked. The hiker attempted to navigate around it, became lost in the river valley, and was found after 2 days, dehydrated and hypothermic, less than 3 miles from the trailhead. 3 miles, 2 days, hypothermic. The Elwha River Trail is not a remote backcountry route. It appears in guidebooks as suitable for day hikers. The washout that caused the problem was a direct consequence of the dam removal. The restored river, running with its full natural energy for the first time in a century, was actively reshaping its valley. The park's trail maintenance crews work continuously to keep up with the changes, but a river reclaiming its floodplain does not wait for the maintenance schedule. This is the dynamic version of Olympics danger, not a static set of hazards that can be mapped and warned against, but a landscape continuously changing in response to forces that operate on timescales and with energies that human infrastructure cannot fully anticipate. The Olympic Peninsula is one of the most geographically isolated regions in the contiguous United States, bounded by the Pacific Ocean to the west, the Strait of Juan de Fuca to the north, and Puget Sound and Hood Canal to the east. The only land connection to the rest of Washington state is a narrow corridor to the south. The sole crossing of the Hood Canal is a floating bridge, the third longest floating bridge in the world, that has on multiple occasions been closed due to storm damage or high winds. When the Hood Canal Bridge closes, the Olympic Peninsula is effectively an island. This matters for park safety in a way that no trailhead sign addresses. The medical infrastructure available to someone seriously injured in Olympic is limited by the peninsula's isolation. The nearest Level 1 trauma center is in Seattle, across the Hood Canal Bridge, across Puget Sound, or via helicopter. For a visitor who suffers a serious injury in the backcountry, the time between injury and definitive medical care is not measured in the minutes that urban emergency medicine assumes. It is measured in hours, and sometimes in the availability of a helicopter that can fly in the weather conditions that prevail on the peninsula on any given day. There is a contradiction at the heart of Olympic National Park that deserves to be stated directly. The park's extraordinary ecological diversity, the feature that makes it a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is inseparable from the features that make it dangerous. The 140 inches of annual rainfall that sustains the Hoh rainforest is the same rainfall that swells the rivers and creates the conditions for hypothermia. The glaciers that feed the park's rivers are the same glaciers that present crevasse hazards and rockfall zones. The 73 miles of wild coastline that make Olympic's coastal strip one of the most spectacular in North America are the same coastline where sneaker waves arrive without warning and tidal passages close without mercy. You cannot have the park without the danger. They are the same thing. This is different from a park where the danger is separable from the beauty, where you can admire the Grand Canyon from a safe viewpoint, or watch Old Faithful from a boardwalk. In Olympic, the features that make the park worth visiting require you to be inside the danger to experience them. The Hoh rainforest is not visible from a parking lot. The coastal headlands are not visible from a road. The glaciers of Mount Olympus are not visible from any developed area of the park. You have to earn them, and in earning them, you accept a level of exposure that the park's reputation as a weekend destination from Seattle does not adequately communicate. David Rant went into this park in August 2010 with experience, equipment, and a plan. He was 63 years old, decades of outdoor experience behind him. He was not a novice. He was not making an obvious mistake. He simply did not come back. The search that launched when he was reported overdue covered significant terrain and found nothing. No equipment, no remains, no indication of what happened or where. In a park with 922,651 acres that includes active glaciers, glacially fed rivers, dense old-growth rainforest, and 73 miles of wild coastline, a prepared and experienced person can disappear without leaving a trace that searchers can find. That is not a failure of the search. That is a statement about the park, the Host-Klallam, the Quileute, the Quinault, the Makah, the indigenous peoples who have lived on this peninsula for thousands of years, understood the relationship between this landscape and human survival. They built their cultures around it. They did not mistake the beauty for safety, because they knew the beauty and the danger were the same thing. We arrive now with GPS and Gore-Tex, and the confidence of people who have never had to learn that lesson the hard way. Most of us leave without learning it. Some of us don't leave at all. Olympic National Park is worth every visit. The Hoh rainforest is one of the most extraordinary places in North America. The view from Hurricane Ridge on a clear day, the Olympic Mountains rising above the Strait of Juan de Fuca, the Cascades visible to the east, Vancouver Island to the north, is the kind of view that changes how you understand the scale of the world. Check the tide tables before you walk the coast, and treat the tidal windows as hard deadlines. Carry rain gear regardless of the forecast. Tell someone your exact itinerary and your expected return time. Carry a satellite communicator in the backcountry. Do not climb on coastal logs, and understand that the moment you step past the trailhead sign, you are in a place that will not adjust itself to your expectations. The park is extraordinary. It is worth knowing the truth about. Olympic is not the only park where the gap between reputation and reality has cost people their lives. Next time, we go to a park that sits at the top of almost every bucket list in the American West. A place so photographed, so celebrated, so deeply embedded in the national imagination that its danger has become almost impossible to see. A park where the leading cause of death is not what you would guess, where the most dangerous season is the one that draws the most visitors, and where the landscape itself creates a specific illusion that has been killing people for over a century. That story is next.